All right, everybody, welcome back to the Steel City Blitz Steelers Podcast presented by Deck Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. The Pittsburgh Steelers are now into the true training camp portion of this pandemic-led thing that we're doing. I don't even know what you want to call it, but they've kind of worked their way through the first couple of phases, and now training camp is officially underway, although I shall never call it training camp official unless it's in Latrobe at St. Vincent College.
Yeah. Good catch.
Yeah, I try. But it is what it is. And the Steelers have had a couple of really good days of practice, according to head coach Mike Tomlin. And we are here to opine on all things Steelers through these first couple of days. And Ian, I believe, is getting his adult beverage of choice right now. So we will say hello to Ben first, who I believe already has his adult beverage of choice. Ben, how are things for you this fine summer evening?
Fantastic. It was warm today, but not 100 like it was yesterday and the day before.
Oof.
Yeah, that's too damn much.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not humid here or anything here, so it's a dry heat and all that,
Right.
But whatever, man. 100 degrees. I left Arizona for a reason. Fuck that. I'm not living in that ever again. Nope.
Sometimes you don't have a choice, but this will obviously be short-lived there in the upper Northwest. And Ian has jumped back on here. And Ian, how are things in the Steel City today?
Things are good. We are awaiting word this Friday on whether or not there will be high school football or any sports this fall.
Okay.
The Pennsylvania Athletic Association, the PIAA, delayed fall sports by 2 weeks. As of right now, I believe they're the only state remaining that hasn't actually made a formal decision yet. So we'll see what they're going to do. And they had a meeting with the governor's staff this week. Where we are is the governor's made a recommendation that he has been very explicit is not a mandate, but a recommendation not to play sports in the fall. Yet somehow the governor's office, it just came out, signed a secret deal with the car show in Harrisburg, happens to be the state capital, to allow 20,000 people a day at this outdoor event that lasted 4 days. When the current mandate or guidance for outdoor events is 250 people. So that story's been making the rounds thanks to some intrepid reporting from a local Pittsburgh news station. And so we'll see where things go. It seems like the momentum is towards having fall sports of some kind. I'm hopeful that includes football, but we'll see kind of where it goes. That the PIA is meeting this Friday, and we'll make a decision from there. Because obviously there's some fall sports like golf and tennis that you can do with social distancing very easily, much more easier than football. So it would honestly be a shame to punish all student athletes, all high school kids in those sports just because football can't. Or there's recommendations against football, but we'll see where it all goes.
Yeah, and here in the Mitten, we've had football pushed back to the spring, and we're supposed to get an update tomorrow on all the other sports, and again, golf, tennis, cross country. Apparently, they think things like that will probably be fine. They're not so sure about soccer, but they'll make an announcement coming up tomorrow. And either way, kids need to know. It's been long enough. Okay, so the Pittsburgh Steelers training camp. I would say, guys, if somebody said, give me a theme of what you've heard, what you've been told, what you've seen, there's a lot of talk that Ben Roethlisberger looks great. He's throwing the ball well. He's got good zip on the ball. His delivery's a little different and blah, 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 blah. But I got to tell you, today, especially after I heard Mike Tomlin's post-practice press conference via Zoom, there is a media love affair right now with Ryan Switzer, and I don't get it, but they think that he's just performing phenomenally. Both Mark Cabali of The Athletic and Joe Rutter of the Trib both asked specific Switzer questions to Tomlin, and out of about 7 total questions, So they clearly are on some kind of bandwagon. Ben is I believe he's going to make the roster. We've kind of said all along that he is, but I mean, is there really any reason for us to expect him to be anything more than what he's been in the past?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm not even 100%. I don't know. I don't think he should make the roster, to be honest. I'm kind of tired of it.
Yeah.
That's me. I think even at his best, there are better options on the roster, and that he, and he's a really popular guy. He's obviously a really nice guy.
Oh yeah.
Super respectful, everything else, does everything right, said everything right this year, worked his ass off.
Yep.
He's done all the right things. I mean, he read the room basically and was like, hey, these, the fans in particular all think I suck.
Yeah.
And I'm going to work my ass off and prove to them that I'm not. But to me, the thing that jumps out about him is he's just at a size disadvantage to everybody else in the league.
Yeah.
And, you get a hand on him and he goes down. And he can't really make anybody miss in the short area. So I'm just not – I don't know. I just think there are better options at wide receiver and at punt returner, and I think they should turn the page. I doubt they will.
I agree. And as far as the punt returner, there's no question it should be a Deante Johnson, and that's the end of the conversation. Ian, what has Ryan Switzer? What does he have to do in order to make fans all of a sudden go, "Oh man, I'm really glad we kept this guy"?
I mean, outside the obvious, like run forward on a punt return and maybe break a few tackles and average more than 2 inches per return and things like that. I mean, he really wants to be Julian Edelman, but he's not Julian Edelman.
No.
And
well said.
Yeah. And that's he's never going to be Julian Edelman, I don't think. And at this point in his career, he probably would have proven something if he was even on that path. And that's the long and the short of it. I mean, he can post as many workout videos as he wants on Twitter. But until he actually turns that into something out on the field, it's not going to translate.
And look, and Ben alluded to it, the guy worked his tail off. I mean, he literally transformed his body from being a guy that was in really good shape to being in awesome shape. You can see it in his body. He's worked tremendously hard on his agility. Everybody that I've read or talked to says his routes are much crisper and better and everything else. But I personally can't get out of my head what I've seen from him. And I just can't imagine any player taking that big of a jump just over the course of one off season. And suddenly doing what he does. Now, I think he makes the roster, and no, I don't think it's because he's buddies with Ben. Sure, we can say that maybe is part of it. I don't think it is. I think he makes the roster because Mike Tomlin likes guys who know what they're doing. He likes the veteran types, and he's useful because he can play the slot, and of course he can be a punt returner if needed.
But if Deon Cain could catch,
I agree. But don't you think Deon Cain's a different type of receiver, though?
He is. He's an outside guy, strictly, and he's inconsistent with his hands. And if he could catch, he'd make this team way ahead of Switz. So it's not to say that Switz will make the team because he's good. Right. It's that there's nobody behind him that can push him. I know that he's done a lot of great things so far in camp. People are super excited, and he's going to make people eat their words and eat crow. And I hope he does.
Absolutely.
I hope he does. Because if he does, my favorite team benefits.
Absolutely.
So I would love for him to prove all of us wrong and make us eat shit. But I don't see it happening. And how many times have we seen people that popped during the preseason and in training camp and then did nothing during the regular season? How many times have we seen that? So
every year.
Stop. Every single year. So stop buying the hype until you actually see him do it when it counts. Stop buying the hype. Stop. I know it's fun. You want to get into it, but you're setting yourself up to get let down. I'm just telling you.
And it's funny you mentioned that aspect of it, because I've already heard these amazing things about, Ola Adeniyi too. And again, Ola's great person, all those wonderful things. But we hear this every year about him. Looks great in camp. God, he looks good in camp. Oh, this guy, he gets off the ball so quick. Oh, this. No, stop. Until we see these guys do it in the games, the games that matter.
I think he's going to make a jump this year. I really do.
Oh, I think it's very possible.
Yes.
But I'm also being very reserved in my thoughts, because, like you said, we've seen this before. We see it every single year where there's hype, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, he's just another guy.
Let's put it another way. If Ola doesn't make a jump this year, like a serious jump, he's done.
Yeah.
I mean, his back is against the wall, really. If he doesn't make that jump this season, he is done.
Yeah. Ian, the last thought I want to have on Switzer is this. If the Steelers go 11 personnel and they've got the 3 wide receivers on the field, who are your 3 wide receivers?
Depends on what you want to do.
Okay.
So, okay.
Yeah, that was.
I think in a general sense, in a 1st and 10 situation.
Thank you. Yes.
It's going to be 1st and 10, not in the red zone. I'll caveat that. But it's going to be Juju, it's going to be Deante, and it's going to be James Washington. And with that alignment, you can line those 3 guys plus either Vance McDonald or Eric Ebron up in any formation you want to. You can do trips in the slot. You can put Juju in the slot. You can put Deante in the slot. You can put Juju or Deante outside. James Washington probably better on the outside.
Agreed.
But you can move those guys around and pretty much do whatever you want with them on the field. And especially if James Conner's healthy, he's a threat out of the backfield as well, much more so than Jalen Samuels was. And but I think we're going to see a lot of 12 personnel this year. I think we're going to see a lot of 2 tight end sets with Ebron and McDonald. And I think, I think especially the first half of the year, I know we've talked about kind of when Claypool may have an impact. I think the first half of the year, they may kind of just keep him not quite as a one-trick pony, but more or less as a red zone target and guy who runs fly routes. Basically, I don't think they're going to ask him to run a whole lot of the route tree the first half of the year. They may expand things as the year goes, depending on what he's able to do. But really, they need to be more variable with their personnel and their play calling. Last year, you knew if certain players were in the game, it was going to be a run or a pass, and that was it. There was no variability. That's one of the beautiful things of having a 2 tight end set is you can run out of that, you can pass out of that, especially with athletic guys that can get down the seam like McDonald and Ebron can. And we really missed going over the middle of the field last year. That was just dreadful.
That's a good point.
So, having guys like that creates mismatches on defense because those are formations with 2 tight ends that you can either run or pass out of. Whereas last year, those were pretty much exclusively run formations.
So in other words, in a very general sense of 11, if we're talking 11 personnel, Switzer's not the first option to be on the field.
No, he's not.
No.
He's your backup slot guy. The one thing they did do 2 years ago, if you remember, in certain situations, they lined Switzer up in the backfield at the running back spot. So it looked like 11 personnel from an alignment standpoint, but they put Switzer. I don't think they ever handed off to him, but they had him run some like drag routes and curl routes out of the backfield. I think he may have scored a touchdown that way once in a goal line situation. But they did do that a few times. I'd say it was successful half the time if I'm being generous. So that's not a situation or a formation you can want to see.
If you're successful half the time, you got a pretty good success rate.
Okay, probably not.
Say maybe 1 time out of 10. I don't mean to be such a naysayer when it comes to this guy, but he just hasn't been very effective. I mean, it is what it is, man. If he wants to change the narrative, he's going to have to go out there and change their minds.
Right. Let us be his motivation. And if that makes our team better, then so be it. We do have a couple of fan questions tonight, guys, on the podcast. So let me get to one right away. This comes from somebody we know as Hall of Famer Rick.
Hi, Rick.
Hi, Rick. I wonder if Rick's enjoying all of his Terry Bradshaw whiskey. He ordered like 30 bottles of it.
Are you kidding me?
Oh, no. Or should I say, I bet you Terry sent them to him free of charge.
Really good stuff. I've gone through a bottle. I'm working on my second one now. It is really tasty.
Yeah. Terry needs to send us little, something here for all this free publicity.
Sure.
Anyway, Rick says, are you as excited as I am to see 91 destroy people? And then he left like the LOL emoji. So is he being silly or is he being serious?
I think knowing Rick, he's being serious.
I would think.
I think that when Tuitt's healthy, he's
a destroyer of peoples.
Yeah, well, more so, I think he might be the best defensive player when he's actually healthy and on the field. Yeah. I mean, better, and that's saying a lot. You got T.J. Watt, you got Steven Nelson, you got Devin Bush, you got Cam Hayward, even Bud Dupree. I mean, these are all good players, and Tuitt might be better than any of them from a talent standpoint. Now, I don't know that he always displays that, right. But as Carl Dunbar pointed out a couple of days ago, when Tuitt is out there on the front, you can't double team everybody. So having Tuitt out there, even if all he does is just draw a double team, it frees somebody else up. And look out. When you got those four guys, you've got Dupree and a Cam Hayward and a Stephon Tuitt and TJ Watt as a four-man rush, you don't need to blitz. That's the beauty of that situation. Now you can play a coverage defense and still get pressure, and that's what you want. Ideally, you want to get pressure out of those four-man rushes, and they'll get it. So, I'm excited about it. I just hope he can stay healthy.
Yeah, and I think that's everybody's help with Stephon Tuitt. Absolutely. You are listening to the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast, presented by Deck Roofing Incorporated. Deck Roofing serves Broward and the southern Palm Beach counties, whether it's commercial or residential, multifamily, or condos. Contact Deck Roofing today by visiting deckroofing.com. Benny Snell's dropped about 12 pounds. I'm going to start calling this like the Mike Tomlin running back diet or the Mike Tomlin running back fitness program or something. Ben, we've seen this before with other running backs. What is going on here in terms of why do they do this with certain running backs in terms of drop a little bit of weight?
It goes back all the way to Fast Willie Parker. His first year with Tomlin, he came in really, really good shape, and they literally ran his wheels off, if you recall.
I do.
It basically kind of spelled the end of his career. And I'm not saying that Tomlin hasn't grown since 2007. Obviously, he has. But, it does seem that a lot of guys, Connor, before him, Le'Veon Bell, these are all guys that after a year in the system were advised to maybe come in a little bit lighter so they could be shiftier and quicker, and did so. And it paid dividends. So hopefully it does do the same for Benny Snell. I've never envisioned him as anything but an inside the tackles runner. He's not real shifty, not real nifty, doesn't make people miss. He just bashes them. Yeah. So, hey, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Ian, what do you expect to see from him? Because Ben just laid it out. I honestly, I didn't think Bell would become what Bell did either, even though he lost the weight and got in great shape. But, is there something we should expect from Snell that maybe we're not seeing?
So I'll say two things here. So to answer your question, I think what you want to see from Snell is more of that long speed or the breakaway speed that he hasn't shown really. But if you slim down a little bit, your acceleration goes up too. Or at least, he's not afraid of contact. So he's going to run through guys. We've talked before on the podcast about how he led the team in yards after contact last year. So, he's not afraid of contact. He can break contact. He's not an easy guy to bring down because he keeps his legs churning. But also once he breaks that contact, does he have the acceleration to be able to get farther down the field, or is he, when you're the difference between 214 and 225 may not sound like a lot, but for professional athletes, it can be. And the other thing that Tomlin has talked about for years is being NFL fit, that, they get guys that come in that are, look like physical specimens. Like Sammy Coates was a great example. I mean, that dude was just shredded, and they were like, nope, drop some weight so that you're better fit to endure kind of the long toll that an NFL season takes on your body.
A marathon.
It is a marathon. Absolutely. The one example that I always think of is Troy Polamalu. Shout out to Ellie for mentioning Troy here. But Troy always said that, when he worked out and lifted weights, he lifted really light weights, but did a ton of reps with them to try and build up his endurance rather than, trying to max out and lift heavy weights to build up his muscle mass. That he was more focused on speed and endurance than he was on on
overall strength.
Strength, exactly. So I think that's something too, is that some of these guys come in out of college and they're in these college weight programs that are heavily focused on overall strength, because and they want to go to the combine, they want to put up big numbers on the bench press and do all that kind of stuff. And when you do that, sometimes you lose some agility and some movement just because your muscles are so big.
Well, I'm fascinated to see what happens with him, because we did see a great transformation with Bell, and I'm in no way, shape, or form suggesting we'll see something like that with Snell. It's not, to me, even in the same ballpark, but I am curious to see. And you're right, even an 8 to 10 pound difference for these guys is a big difference. Just like if I drop 8 to 10 pounds, it's like, I'm no longer carrying several pounds of sugar, which in some cases I would be. But anyway, who else they say, Ben, that is in phenomenal shape, transformed his body a little bit too, is Deante Johnson. He was already in pretty good shape and had a pretty good year last year. Does that just make you a little bit that much more excited for him?
He muscled up is the thing.
Yeah.
So it's a little different. Deante is still a young guy. He's 24. Which incidentally, I should point out again, we've talked about this before, but Juju Smith-Schuster is 23.
Crazy.
I know that people have knocked some things he did and does. One, he's still a kid. You got to remember that. You got to put those things in context. He's still a kid. And number two, he hasn't even entered his prime yet.
Nope. And
he may do some great things this year and make a lot of people eat their words. Let's put it this way. I think there's a lot better chance of that happening than Switzer proving people wrong.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I would also take that bet. Yes.
Getting back to Mr. Johnson, he's actually muscled up. He put a little weight on. So I think, that's as long as he's maintaining his quickness, his short area quickness and burst, that's the thing that has been his forte, is the way he creates separation so easily. His awareness of where the corner is going and his quick feet to go, I was going this way, but I'm going back this way. It's not quite Barry Sanders. I'm not trying to make that comparison or anything here, but he's got a way about him, and part of it is his wits, and part of it is his feet. And as long as he's still got those quick feet, good news. Like here,
I mean, his ability to run really good routes coming out of college, that is not something you always see out of these kids coming out. And he was already a really accomplished route runner. Staying on the offensive side of the ball, Ian, the right tackle battle is obviously something people are paying attention to. Zach, Mr. Eligible Banner, and Chuks Okorafor. According to Mike Tomlin, Matt Filer, the former right tackle, has taken all his snaps at left tackle. Left guard. Thank you. Left guard throughout camp so far. So they seem very, very intent on one of those two guys. And what do you make of the fact that Chuks has had more reps? And in some cases, we've seen Banner back at the old eligible spot during some drills and stuff too. Do you take anything from that, or is it just the way things go and we're not even close to sorting this out yet?
I'd say it's closer to we're not close to sorting this out yet. I think given what they invested in Okorafor, a third-round pick, a late pick, but granted a third-round pick, I think they would like him to win the job, especially because he's under contract for another year after this year, whereas Banner's on a one-year restricted free agent deal. So I think they would prefer Okorafor. They want their draft investment to pay off. They're giving him a chance, but I think they'll give Banner a chance too. I mean, we're 3-4 days into padded practice, or they didn't even practice in pads today. So they've had 2 padded practices. One of them Villanueva was not in for, so they moved Chooks to the left side and Banner on the right side. And that's the other thing to keep in mind is Villanueva's in the last year of his contract too. So it's possible that they want to get Chooks as many reps as possible because they potentially could view him as the left tackle of the future, and they want to find out if he's capable of that or not. And if he's not, then they need to have another plan at left tackle. So we'll see what happens, but I wouldn't read too much into it after 2 practices.
But Ben, you've said that several times that you think they obviously, as Ian said, they want or would like to see Chooks win that, but you've also said that maybe he moves over to that left tackle spot at some point too, right?
Yeah, they want Chooks to win the right tackle spot this year. Make no bones about it. They do. They are not just going to hand it to him, though.
No.
And the reason that they do is they view him as a future left tackle because he's got good feet. That said, a lot of things could change. I don't think, for example, that Al is going to have a very strong market next year between the fact that the salary cap is going to shrink dramatically and his age.
Yep.
And the fact that, I mean, honestly, I know he made a Pro Bowl, but he made that on the fan vote, not on votes from players and coaches. And, it's popularity contest. And he's never been that good. I mean, he's technically sound and he's a smart player, but he's not a dominant left tackle, and he's just not going to be in high demand next year. So he could end up coming back, especially if Chooks Okorafor is not very impressive this year. But they'd like to get Chooks out there. And honestly, I tend to wonder. I don't know this. I have been told they want Chooks to win that spot, but I tend to wonder if their plan isn't, well, we got 3 tackles. We got one that we think can play left tackle, but he's going to have to step up and do it. So hopefully he wins at the right tackle spot this year, get some experience. Then we move him to left. Then we got Banner. We'll throw him in there as the swing tackle this year, and he'll play a lot of that spot where he's the extra tackle on our heavy sets, and he'll still get more experience. He'll have another year in the system. And then we'll tell him next year, hey, we want you to come in and compete to be our right tackle. And re-sign him. Yeah. And then they're covered, right? Hopefully.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's not like Banner's going to have a strong market either. I don't think. So
I don't either.
I think long term they're thinking about this stuff from that standpoint. They will either draft or sign another tackle next year without question. Because, one of those 3 is going to be gone. Either Banner, Chooks, or Al is gone next season. So they've got to think about it from that standpoint. I don't think there's anything to read into what's taken place thus far. And Tomlin even mentioned that after the first practice in pads. He said, I just want to caution you guys, don't count reps because they don't necessarily mean anything. We're putting people in positions to see what they think, to see what they can do, when they're put in those positions. And that's going to change day by day.
Yeah, I agree, and I know full well that maybe some listeners might be wondering, well, what about Banner? There's no Banner's not a left tackle. It's not going to happen.
No,
he is right tackle or bust kind of a thing.
And that's the thing, man. If you're a right tackle only in the NFL, it's really, really hard to keep a job because if you're a right tackle, you got to be a little more versatile. You've either got to be an elite right tackle where people know your name and want to sign you, which he's not, or you've got to be a guy who can play like 3 spots along the line, both guards and right tackle, like a guy like Matt Filer. So we'll have a strong market next year. So that's one more thing to think about.
Very true. Let's switch over to
one other thing I'll add that just to follow up on Ben's points that we've talked about before. Villanueva is like the 20th highest paid tackle in the left tackle in the league, which is probably about commensurate with his ability level. I mean, he's not an elite tackle, and right now he's making a fair salary for his ability level. That being said, I was kind of paging through some of the free agents that got signed this year, and the market's all over the place. You got premier guys like Anthony Costanzo with the Colts, who's 32, which is what Villanueva will be. Yep. And he signed a deal for like $16.5 million per year with Indy. The flip side is you got Kelvin Beachum, who signed a 1-year, basically vet minimum deal with Arizona at like $1.1 million, and he's 31 years old, which is kind of hard to believe that Beachum's 31 already. But nevertheless, but nevertheless, it's kind of all over the place based on injury history plays a factor, skill level plays a factor, all that. But with the cap shrinking, I got to think that for someone who's currently the 20th highest paid tackle in the league, I think Ben's on the right track. There's not going to be a massive market out there for Villanueva.
Yeah, you guys have nailed it. There's no reason for me to even expand on it any further than that. So I'm just going to move over to the defense. I heard and read some really good things today about Ulysses Gilbert, and it's some stuff that we have pondered in past shows and in some articles at SteelCityBlitz.com. He ran very well in some coverage stuff with running backs. I mean, now again, we always temper. It's just training camp. It's practice. But Ben, what does it mean if he can be a guy that can be relied upon to come on the field at times and cover the other team's running back?
It means they have a dime linebacker.
Yeah.
It means they have a linebacker that can do what they wanted Mark Barron to do last year, and he couldn't do. It doesn't mean a whole lot more than that. I would not start accepting the possibility that he's going to push Vinny for reps on first and second down. I don't see that. One, I don't think people understand the fact that Vince Williams is an exceptional tackler. He's not perfect. Nobody is, but he's very, very reliable as a tackler. And two, that he's smart. The guy is a sub-average athlete in the NFL. I'll just put it out there. He is.
Yeah.
But he's managed to put together, a 10-year career?
Incredible. Yeah.
Is this his 10th year or 9th?
Well, he's 31, isn't he? So I think it's 9 or 10. I'll have to pull it up.
Put together a long career in the NFL because he's a smart guy. Okay? And you don't just pick up
13.
I'm sorry?
He was drafted in 13. So this is
13
year.
Eighth year. Okay.
This is the 8th season. Okay. So I'm one over. I thought it was 9th or 10th. All right. So he's put together a long career in the NFL as a sub-average NFL athlete. I'll just say it. He is.
Yeah.
And, playing for a pretty good team, a pretty good defense. He's managed to stave off younger guys because he's a smart player. And those kind of smarts don't just happen. It takes study and a lot of experience. And that's the thing where Ulysses Gilbert's going to have to step up his game a little bit if he wants to come in and compete for those first and second down reps.
Yeah.
And maybe he will get them at some point this season. But I think more likely we're probably looking at next year. If he can prove himself as a sub-package linebacker this season, next season, he could be a guy that they can count on to be on the field all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a process for these young guys, and Williams. I can remember doing podcasts talking about him as a rookie and his second year, wondering if he would even remain on the roster, and he has. He's made himself a very good football career, and continues to be a guy you have to have on the field on first and second down. But if Gilbert, if nothing else, can be a guy that can cover pretty well, then we'll take it and go from there. Ian, there's also been a lot of talk about how good Terrell Edmunds looks this week, covering well, tackling well, doing all these things. I mean, do you think he senses the urgency that he's got to have this year?
I would think so, especially, being a first-round pick. And they went out and got Minkah, which is Minkah plays a different position. Edmunds is a strong safety, Minkah is a free safety. But nevertheless, they also drafted another strong safety this year, essentially. I mean, we've talked about, we've talked about Brooks, right? We've talked about the potential for him to be more of a dime backer or something like that, but essentially it's another strong safety. So, and Edmunds has struggled. His brother, who is a running back, had more interceptions than he did last year. Let's
Can you explain that? Because many of our listeners are going, what's he talking about?
Yeah, there was a play where the Rams ran a fake punt because Sean McVay only is able to win with Jeff Fisher's players. So the Rams ran a fake punt, and Trey Edmunds, running back who's playing special teams, alertly intercepted the pass.
That's right.
Terrell Edmunds, who played the entire season on defense, looks like he has no idea where the ball is when it's in the air. And there's been a number of plays over time where Edmunds gets in position to make plays and just misses them. The one that stands out from last year is the last touchdown against Buffalo in a game we absolutely had to win.
Had to have.
He lets a slot tight end run down the field and run right out to the post, or not to the post in the middle. Run right out to the pylon, wide open, and just keeps backpedaling off of him and never closes down on him, even after he crosses the goal. And it was a wide open pass for Josh Allen. I mean, say what you will about Josh Allen's accuracy, but I mean, anyone not named Mitch Trubisky could probably make that throw.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
You or I could make that throw. And yeah, Josh Allen has got a much stronger arm. So not only is it getting there, it's getting there fast.
Oh man, that's good. But hey, you know what? Much in the same way we obviously have our questions about Switzer, we have our questions and doubts about Edmunds. But look, we want to be proven wrong. We want this kid to do well.
I think Edmunds is going to make a jump this year. I really do, and I hope I'm right about that. He just. His biggest issue to me has always been that he doesn't even try to track the ball in the air. It's not like he lacks athleticism.
No, that's for sure.
He just doesn't try and track the ball, and it's like, if he would just do that one thing, he would be so much more effective. He could either play the ball and defend passes, or play the ball and actually, get a pick. I'm fine with either.
Yeah.
You want to knock the ball down and not let people catch it? Okay. You want to try and actually pick it off, and when he actually has had interceptions, his acceleration is incredible. It's obvious he's a world-class athlete. Do that a little bit, and we'll start believing. We really will. And I just think it's going to take him a little while to. He's only 23. I'm not making excuses.
Another young guy. Yep, he is.
First round pick. The expectations are what they are. It's his third year, but he's only 23. They like taking guys in the first round that are really young so they can develop them. He hasn't hit his prime yet. I tend to see guys that come in young take a little while to develop, and when they do, and it all clicks, they've had enough time in the pros to glean enough experience and information to make the game slow down for them, and then that that supreme athleticism that they have as a natural gift plays on itself, and they become that dominant player. So
sometimes you get Bud Dupree and sometimes you get Artie Burns. That's just the risk of taking young guys.
Yeah, Artie just
very, very, we wish the best for Artie, by the way. He blew his ACL this week. He's over with the Bears now, and obviously wish the best for him. Speaking of injuries real quick, the Steelers so far, everything is pretty minor. Chris Wormley. Yeah, knock on all the wood you can, boys and girls. Chris Wormley's got just a nagging thing. James Washington, kind of the same. And then rookie Kevin Dotson, little knee tweak yesterday, but Mike Tomlin was not overly concerned about any of those things. So far so good, because we're seeing guys drop like flies. We just mentioned Artie Burns, and of course McCoy down there in Texas, in Dallas. Ruptured quad, he's done. So, these things happen. So let's just
wanted to talk about that, but we just don't have time.
Well, I know that's a crazy situation, the way his contract was written. But I did want to just get to this because it kind of leads into our exit strategy here. We did have one other question tonight via Instagram. It says, Herbert Hoover sucked so bad they named a vacuum after him. What should be named Ravens? Huh. That's a very interesting and thought-provoking question. Huh.
What should be named Ravens? Some kind of shitty high school-esque wine that you would buy or that bums would drink. So they could rename Thunderbird Ravens wine.
Is that like a Mad Dog 2020 for the kids or something like that?
It's the worst shit ever. or Night Train. They could rename either Thunderbird or Night Train.
Oh man,
Baltimore Ravens wine.
You know what? We can stop right there. That's it, everybody. Thanks again for listening to the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by Deck Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. Make sure you check out the site, steelcityblitz.com, for daily stuff. And also, Ian has unloaded all of the WPIAL high school football stuff. Still don't quite know the fate yet, but he's got conference previews pumping out at least one or two a day. So make sure you check that out as well. So everybody stay safe out there, and we will see you on the other side. And hey, go Steelers.
Ravens suck.